Welcome. Here's Fred Coon and our next guest. Enjoy.
Welcome, everybody. What a great show we have today. Think and Grow Rich for Women with our very special guest, Sharon Lechter. Sharon, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, Fred. I'm delighted to be with you.
Thank you. Everybody that's listening, how lucky and honored we are to have Sharon here today. All of you know about the book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Guess who was one of the authors of that? Sharon, and 14 other books in that series. She's got so many credentials, it would take me 20 minutes to read all of these, but we're very honored to have her, and she served on the President's Council for Financial Literacy and served President Bush and Obama on the councils. And so, Sharon, I'm really glad to have you today, and I encourage everybody to go read the guest biography section of our website and learn more about Sharon, and her contact information will be there as well. Sharon, our topic today is Think and Grow Rich for Women. I have done a number of podcasts on women's issues, and I'm very interested in your take on actually what inspired you to write the book, Think and Grow Rich for Women.
Well, I think if your listeners are aware and familiar with the book Think and Grow Rich, it was actually written by Napoleon Hill over 25 years of his life, and it was released in 1937. So there weren't too many women in business back then. So when the foundation, and I've done a couple of books with the foundation prior to that one, and they said, we really think it's time to do a book specifically for women. I thought, it is the time. It wasn't because, for many years I refrained from doing anything specifically for women because I felt the steps for success were the same for men and for women. And I thought, well, what I started seeing happening in the world is that women got very angry and started criticizing and complaining, usually the men who got in their way. And I said, when we think about the law of attraction, if we continue complaining and criticizing, we're going to attract things we don't want. So let's change the dialogue, and instead of complaining and criticizing, let's celebrate the progress that women have made. And by doing that, is there still more to do? Of course. But let's celebrate where we are so that we can change that dialogue and have it as more constructive and positive. The other thing was I was frustrated with the number of women who were just bogged down with this work-life balance guilt trip that they were doing. And I said, when you spend precious time today being worried or guilty about work-life balance, you're talking about things that happened in the past. And so if you spent too much time on business and not with your kids yesterday, just make a different choice today.
I think men take for granted all of the balls that women have to juggle on a daily basis just to keep everything together. Job, kids, everything. It's an amazing schedule, and I don't think it gets recognized enough. It's a really important organizational skill set.
It is. It's amazing, and it is generational. My son is much more involved in doing things around the house and taking care of the kids than my husband was. And so you're starting to see that change. But women, we have to understand that the only precious resource we have is time. And so by doing Think and Grow Rich for Women, I honored Napoleon Hill. It's the same chapter outline as the original Think and Grow Rich, but I looked at each of his principles through the eyes of successful women. And so I've highlighted over 300 women in the book, and it's an opportunity for the reader to say, I don't relate to this woman, but the next one I definitely can.
Well, isn't that true of life, though, Sharon? We relate to certain people and we don't. There's millions of them out there to explore, and their backgrounds and their contributions and their advice to us. And, it's wonderful.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I also added recognition for the men that support women, because I think I'm not one that says women should get a role just because they're women. I love working with men. And I think it's when we have both men and women at the table, magic happens. We get the best results.
It's all about solving issues and problems, isn't it? Doesn't matter. Gender doesn't matter. It's the outcome that matters.
You took my line. I say the most successful businesses solve a problem or serve a need. And we certainly have enough of those around, don't we?
Isn't that the truth? I want to ask you, this is a really important question for me. I'm very interested in your answer. What do you feel is the biggest obstacle that women who are looking to advance their careers or profession, what is it they're facing? What are those obstacles, especially the big ones? What are they?
I think the biggest one is a lack of self-confidence. And it's certainly something that I felt even in my own career as I've continued supporting and mentoring people. Men typically have no problem saying they're an expert in something. Women will say, "Oh, I'm pretty good at it." So this lack of self-confidence that women have, that they're not ready. They want everything to be perfect before they move forward, or they don't ask for the raise. They don't ask for that promotion, because they fear they're not ready. And it's something that is, again, we're talking generational, but women need to start focusing on being more, and I don't want to say the word assertive, but more standing in their power more and recognizing their own personal expertise and what they can contribute to the environment that they work in.
Do you think, Sharon, that part of that might be the hunter-gatherer syndrome, where women have always had the gatherer role historically, and they have to organize, make sure the food stores don't go bad and all of the things that go with that? Do you think that is part of that, or is it not?
I think definitely that plays a big role in it.
So the lack of self-confidence or willingness to express, or knowing how to express that, right? It might not be a willingness, it's just knowing how. I find that true with my clients is that they're really good at what they do, but they have no clue how to express that to others in a meaningful way that says, here's the value proposition.
Right. And that's, they don't know how to stand in their own power. And if they have opportunities, they may not take them. They may choose not to go to that networking event because they want to get home and spend time with their kids. They're still, they're still trying to balance everything. But one of the biggest things that women can do is find a mentor, and it could be a man mentor, to help them understand the things that they can do to escalate their rise in the corporate ranks or in creating a more successful business. Because one of the big things that I deal with is very few women-owned businesses actually get kind of any venture funding, well under 2%. And part of that problem is that the venture capital funds themselves don't have many women on board. And we have to kind of start looking at the source of the problem and say, okay, so we need to actually get some of these funds to wake up and realize they need to have more women at the table. And we need to get the women business owners strong enough to be able to make those presentations so that they can win more of the dollars.
That sounds to me like another podcast, Sharon, on that specific subject alone. The last question thank you. I'd like to ask you one more question. You have a unique position on work-life balance. Would you share that with the listeners as to what that is and why you feel that way?
Well, it starts with my concept of the term worry. To worry is to pray for what you do not want. And you think about that. When you concentrate on something that's negative, you close your mind to positive thoughts. And so that one definition really helped me in my life because I happen to be the queen of worry. And now I catch myself and I go, okay, wait, instead of concentrating on what I don't want, let's concentrate on what I do want. And when you translate that into women who are constantly fretting about work-life balance, you're wasting precious time today worried about things that happened in the past. And so in the book, the only chapter that's in Think and Grow Rich for Women that is not in the original Think and Grow Rich is the last chapter, and it's called One Big Life. Because we each have lots of aspects to our life. We have our financial, we have our spiritual, we have our physical, we have our financial, family, social. All of those things create who we are. And so every day something's going to be quote unquote out of balance. The issue is really saying all these things work together to create who I am. And as I started the conversation is, if I realize that I didn't spend enough time with my kids today, just make a different decision today. But don't spend time worrying about it, because that's counterproductive.
I've always said, worry about those things you can control and don't worry about those things you can't, but be in control of what you can as much as you can.
Absolutely.
Folks, we have had a very special guest today, Sharon Lechter. Sharon, I'll right now, in front of God and everybody, I'll invite you back, because I think we've got several discussions to have that are going to be wonderful. So, folks, this is Sharon Lechter. She's an entrepreneur. She's an author, a philanthropist. She's worked for the Bush and Obama's folks on financial literacy. She's the co-author of the bestseller Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and the list goes on. Read her bio on our website and be sure and get her book, because I believe that what she is saying is absolutely true. Sharon, thanks very much for spending time with us today.
Thanks for joining us. If you wish to speak with Fred or you want a transcript of this interview, send an email to podcast@stewartcoopercoon.com. See you soon.